Welcome to the CFL Outsider, a short series of totally impartial hot takes, odd takes, and generally unconventional opinions on the CFL and Canadian football, with your host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds.
Hey kids, welcome back to the CFL Outsider for Week 18. 1 out of 3 ain't good. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and this week's slightly lonely host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Why slightly lonely? Well, as I mentioned last week, the goddess is off to the southern states to participate in this year's Rebel Rally. I talked about this back in week 15, so you can check it out there if you want, and I'll just recap real quickly here. The Rebel Rally is the world's premier all-female off-road navigation rally. It starts on Friday, October 11th and goes for 7 days. If you're interested, you can learn more and see what's going on and get live updates at rebelrally.com. So, Old Man here is all alone with just the hounds for 3 weeks. And I don't think I've introduced you to the beasts just yet. You've likely heard them playing in the background through some of the shows and whatnot. But I figure I'll tell you a little bit more about just what's going on there too. So meet Roman. He's a 12-year-old pit bull of the Genghis Khan line. About 110 pounds of powder puff. Sometimes looks scary, but he's old enough that he could barely gum you to death these days. And Coyote. She's a mixed breed. Mostly the biggest chunks of DNA in her apparently are Labrador and Doberman, and she is a real little trickster. If you're listening on the podcast, hop over to YouTube and check us out there, and you'll see the pictures that I'm putting up of them. If you like dogs, of course. Now, you see, normally they're the happy, playful little pups that I'm showing you here. There's some pictures of them. There's one video here of them I had this video of them when they've been playing all afternoon in the hot sun, and they're just too tired to keep playing, but it's too much fun to stop. So they do this, I don't know, mouth wrestling, I call it. Yeah, you can see it there anyway. Unfortunately, I don't have any video of their favorite game, which is called Bark and Run. Roman's old like me and doesn't like to run so much, but he's got the bark pat down pat. So they start off with wrestling. They get their front legs up over each other's shoulders, and they wrestle like that for a little bit. And then suddenly he gives a couple of his big boy, and Coyote takes off, and she runs all over our big backyard. She runs up the hill we got and down the other side, through the trees and the shrubbery and all that, and then she comes running back towards where he is, and when you get close, he barks again, and she takes off again. And if eventually he doesn't bark at her, she comes back in front of him and then stands there. Well, no, doesn't stand there, sort of gets in front of him and does little circles quick around to get him excited until he barks again, and off she goes. And they love that. They just love playing like that. But that's what they're normally like. Now, this week, not so much, because Goddess has been gone for 4 days now, and they're missing their mama. They're spending an awful lot of time at the front door, just sort of lying there, looking out the little windows and whimpering occasionally. It is probably just that they're pining for her quite mightily, but there may also be an element of, sort of, oh, please don't leave us with the old man to look after us. We're dead. Of course, they have the solace of knowing that I'm the one that's dead. If I kick off, there's lots of me for them to snack on until she gets back anyway. So that's my little bit for this week, my story stuff. Pick 'em this week, I did not. Well, I did 2-1, 3 games. I guess that's better than 50%. It leaves me 45-25 or 43-25-2, depending on whose scoring you take. I gave the Tabbies and Bo way too much credit for their level of play, but at least I wasn't alone. I think maybe all of us weren't quite ready to accept the Bombers' resurgence, but they look real. They do. In fantasy, I made the mistake of picking some Lions. I've been trying to avoid that, but this time I made Stan back, running back and captain, because I thought, hey, if Raquel Armstead can go for 200 yards against the Stampeders, What can William Standback do? Well, apparently what he can do is 15 carries for 50 yards and 8.8 fantasy points. Doubled to 17.6. So, hey, that's something, but still, sheesh. And then I get another 8.7 from McInnes. And that pretty much explains why I've stayed away from the Lions the last half of the season on fantasy. They're just too unpredictable. Luckily, I had Brady, who went off, and my quad of players is from Saskatchewan. I had Harris at quarterback, Johnson at receiver. I took Hickson as the flex because I needed somebody cheap, and the defense. And they all did well and averaged 15.5 points. So that lifted me up to 104.2 for the week. My benchmark is 100. If I get over that, I'm happy. So I'm smiling. Not real big smiles, but I'm smiling. Now, I also want to talk to you, though, about something else here. Who should be the CFL MOP this season? Normally, it goes to offensive players with lots of shiny stats that impress the voters and all. But this year, there aren't any offensive players that have been consistently good all the way through the season. Oh, McInnes, Brady, Cody, they're all being considered, but they've all had either injuries or just off games that have hampered them. There are two players who have been consistently good all season. They're both on defense, and they're both from different divisions. So perfect. This is for any MOP voters that are out there. If you're seeing this, you need to make Roland Milligan Jr. and Tyrese Beverett the finalists for MOP honors. Don't just go by the stats. Look at the tape, and the choice becomes obvious. The lack of impressive offensive players makes this a perfect opportunity to honor the CFL defensive greats that we see year in and year out. So let's get it done. And then once they're the finalists, I go Team Milligan for the award because of like the special teams. But that's just me. Okay. On to the games then. Let's talk about game one. Winnipeg 31 at Hamilton 10. Bye-bye, BOVERALLS. Most, if not all of us, we were all hyped on the BOVERALL train. It was turning into the Cinderella story, and we all love those, don't we? Yes, we do. We couldn't wait to see them come out and knock off them wicked Bombers again. Take them down a notch. And even the panel and the announcers take a really good care to never wear colors that can be associated with the team. They don't want to be accused of cheering for anyone. And yet, out came Kate and Milt in the BOVERALLS. And what a grand time we were all going to have at the ball. But we forgot, Winnipeg's a powerful surrogate evil stepmother and was in no mood for shenanigans. I mean, it started well enough for the Cats. They let Winnipeg have a touchdown, which isn't great. But then they answered right back with a 79-yard drive, and Butler capped it off by running in from the 19-yard line. It looked kind of like they were practicing against air, to tell you the truth. Things were going well. Bo was in rhythm. What could possibly go wrong? Well, apparently the Ticats equipment staff oopsed and switched out the stickum for white grease on the sidelines because suddenly the Tiger Cats couldn't hold on to anything. Their DBs dropped 2 easy interceptions they should have had. Tim White was streaking into the end zone from a deep pass, let it go right through his fingertips, perfectly placed. Any of those plays took, and it might have been a different outcome to this whole game. But they didn't. And then things slowed down in the second quarter. There was no more scoring until almost the end of the half. That's when Winnipeg's replacement for the Strev, Terry Wilson, plunged in from the 1-yard line for a touchdown. 47 seconds left on the clock. You wonder, can Calgary do anything with it? Well, only a 71-yard pass and run that Bo throws to O'Leary Orange. Can't quite get to the end zone. Gets down to the 3. Then they can't punch it in. They end up having to take a field goal as time goes off the clock, and that was pretty much game. That was it. The BOVERALLS magic was done. The Bombers did what they do. They let Brady and that O-line take over the game. They used 20 runs and only 5 passes in the second half. And they scored a touchdown in each of the last 2 quarters. So that was pretty much it. Their D shut Hamilton down. and the game was over. Now, Coach Milanovic did throw his challenge flag early in the fourth quarter in a bit of a desperation move, which I always hate. He was trying to keep a drive going, and there was no chance of him getting the call, but he threw it. Cost him a bit later because, well, they were still down by 14 points. There was a play into the end zone. Lucky Whitehead manages to draw an interference call against, I think it was Moxie back there. On the replay, it was obvious. Should never have been an interference call. It was Whitehead holding on to the DB, but Hamilton had used their challenge. What are you going to do? Does raise questions about coaches' decisions. And then the other thing that really obviously hurt the Tiger Cats in this game was the loss of Bridges. They put Stephen Dunbar over in his position, and they gave him 6 targets, but he got 2 catches for 17 yards, and that's far below what Bridges has been accomplishing this season. Now, both Bo and Zach did attempt long passes early. Bo's was damn perfect, like I said, right there, and Tim White dropped it. Zach's missed by 5 yards. You know, if you're talking about this as a quarterback comparison, which a lot of people did, I thought even though Winnipeg won, Bo was the much better quarterback by far. In fact, Zach made 1 good throw all game, and yet they still walked away with it. So it says a lot about the defense. I also quite enjoyed hearing the story of Bo quoting Brandon Revenberg about continuing to wear the BOVERALLS coming into this game. The quote was, "Oh, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious." I thought that was good. And that takes us to the second game. Game 2, Calgary 15 at BC 32. Unicorn! Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good defensive game. Watching 2 elite defenses hold in check a couple of really good CFL offenses with all the flash and flair that you can get there, that's fun. That is some good football. This game wasn't that, though. This was 2 inept offenses unable to move the ball against 2 woeful defenses. Yeah, a unicorn, a true rarity this year, a boring CFL game. Other than a minute and 52 seconds in the fourth quarter when the Lions defense got 1 very lucky play and 1 exceptionally good play that they turned into 2 touchdowns, pick 6 and a fumble return, the rest of the game was pretty much a snooze fest. Both teams looked lost and they weren't playing with any fire at all. Neither team could run the ball, which, to paraphrase Ben Major, is kind of weird. And for a while, it looked like Tommy Stevens with his whole bunch of 1.5-yard sneaks might be the leading rusher. And then Mayer, well, he leaned on Bagleton early and moved the ball well into their first drive. Looked like they might get some points until Hyman fumbled and Ely picked it up and returned it back to the Calgary 22, a 64-yard fumble return. BC's offense couldn't do anything. They got a field goal. And then the drudgery continued into the second quarter. The Stamps did manage to string together 7 plays and tossed Ish Hyman a 10-yard touchdown pass. Maybe that makes up for his earlier fumble. Maybe not. Don't know. BC answered with a field goal late, and it was 7-6 at the half. In the second half, BC tried to get their offense going by turning to powerhouse tight end Andrew Pearson. And the crowd went crazy. You want to fire up football fans? Throw it to one of us big hoggies. They love that. That did provide a few seconds of entertainment, but then everyone got back to their plodding. Boom, boom, boom. Stamps Rouge and a Lions field goal made it 9-8 for BC at the 3-quarter mark. Start of the fourth, BC got another field goal. And then on the next series, the first of those plays, defensive end Matthew Betts got a little blocked up in his pass rush and out of position and ended up being exactly where they were trying to throw a screen ball. It looked like it might have been a really great play, but apparently he even said in his pastime interview, I was just in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the right time, whatever. Pure luck. He streaked down the sidelines for a 70-yard touchdown, and Jake Mayer was the only one with any chance. He was in hot pursuit trying to catch him. Well, sort of. Actually, if you look at the play, the closer that Bowman got to the end zone, the more he was getting gassed and slowing down. And for every bit that he slowed down, Jake, you got the feeling maybe didn't really want to get to position and have to make a tackle and have something go wrong. So he slowed down and Jake slowed down and he slowed down and Jake slowed down and kept this nice little distance between them. A good business decision on not having to get into any contact. Anyway, so at that point I'm thinking, well, that's great now because the Lions are up. It's halfway through the fourth quarter. They're up by 8 points. They got to run out the clock. Maybe they'll start giving Stan back the ball because I had picked him in my fantasy and he wasn't doing much. I guess I should have heard the football gods snickering at me in the background because he never got back on the field for a while. TJ Lee, next series for Calgary, jumps a bubble screen with a very nice play, knocks it out of the air, scoops it up, takes it to the end zone. The refs rule that it was a backward lateral. It was a fumble for real. Touchdown counts. Even the center couldn't overturn it. Nothing there to see. So the Lions from there, they did try to lean on Stan back once they got the ball back, but 6 carries for 24 yards, got them 2 more field goals. And then somehow, after all this was done, they let Calgary get Bagleton in behind coverage with like 4 minutes left. Didn't make it really close, but made it a bit closer. I don't know how you let that happen when you're playing nobody deep behind you, this soft zone. But he got there, and by that point, Schultz had been brought in to replace Mayer at the quarterback, and he got the ball to Bagleton. So there was a score there for whatever it was worth. 2 things I didn't understand about this game. Well, maybe 3. How can a CFL game be that boring and bad? But more important, 2 things I don't understand is where the heck did that Calgary run defense come from? Because they haven't done that all season. And I don't know, do I take Leak for Edmonton next week now? Think he should run all over them, but don't know. Or maybe Rankin. Got to see the depth charts, I guess. Anyway, and then the other thing is, what the hell is up with the players after a good play lifting their jersey and showing us a part of their belly as a touchdown celebration? What the hell is that crap? It makes no sense. Now, mind you, I admit, I'm an old man and not cool. I've been watching Bo do this stuff after the touchdown passes for years, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Is he trying to say I'm playing like I'm juiced or something? Apparently it's ice in the veins. I got that from one of the TSN guys the other day. I don't understand what the kids are doing with cellies these days. Anyway, that's that for that one, and it takes us to Saskatchewan 28, Elk 24, Game 3, last one of the weekend. 1 if by land, 2 if by air. And each team got 1 touchdown running, 2 throwing. Yeah. Do I feel like I need to explain these things? I probably shouldn't. You're smart people. Maybe I'll just let it go. Anyway, I started out very unimpressed because I'm getting ready to watch a football game. If you're going to put music on, it's got to complement football. Football takes a certain kind of music to get you in the mood. It's got to be fast. It's got to be up the tempo. It's got to be energetic with a good bass beat going on it. And so what do we get with TSN? There's some sort of thing called Sucker, some fizzy pop schlock thing that has nothing to do with football. Might have been a good opening theme for like The Bachelor or something like that maybe, but no. Hell, the Teletubbies would have been better than whatever that was. But ooh, that did change fast, didn't it? Because this game, the first quarter was a bit slow, but it was by far the best game of the week. The first 2 games, yeah. And I guess the Riders and the Elks, they decided we're going to make up for that. They both moved the ball well in the first quarter, but didn't get a whole lot of scoring going on. Edmonton put a rouge in the end zone that they didn't mean to on a punt. Harris moved the ball, but then he got picked off. He was passed down the seam that him and Emilus read differently where they were supposed to be, and instead of Emilus, the DB was there. But then the second quarter, it picked up. The Elk put together a drive. 12 plays, 93 yards, finished with a rushing TB to Leak that was really well designed and executed. And frankly, it was they had both Leake and Rankin in the backfield. They faked a dive by Rankin and tossed the ball right to Leake on the outside. Havencock Baldonado for the Riders, their D-end, he had the contain on that play, but on the fake, he crashed down, turned his shoulders 90 degrees to the line of scrimmage, which is always a no. And so even though he was sort of in position when the toss came, he couldn't get flipped back around and out over it. Touchdown in the end zone. Baldonado, I've got to say, Baldonado, he's one of the world players, and he's doing better than most of them. I'm quite impressed with him, but that was kind of a rookie mistake. So there they are, down now 8-0, a single in the touchdown. But before the Rider fans could really build up their sort of, oh, here we go again, we're going to lose, Trevor Harris said, hold my beer. Went out and threw an 88-yard touchdown strike to Samuel Emlis. The LTB was behind him, trying to get close, decided he'd go for the strip, trying to punch the ball out rather than get the tackle. He missed and fell off, and Emlis got it down to the end zone. Now, we've seen that kind of strip tackle twice so far this year in the CFL, both by the Riders. Jameer Thurman did it against Nick Dembski with the Bombers, and Amari Henderson did it later in this game. If you watch them, the key that what they did is when they're coming in, they get one hand and they reach out and get the hold of the shoulder pad of the player running away from them, and then punch through to the ball. If you get it out, you get the fumble, which they did in both cases, and it's great. If you don't, you still have the control to be able to make the tackle. The LDB missed that step, and once he missed the punch out, he just didn't have a chance of doing anything. It was nice of them. They decided they'd go for a 2-point convert, which I thought was kind of ballsy because, you know, you've just been scored on and you just come back with a score that quick, good momentum in your favor. Going for a 2-point and missing it could kill that momentum, but they did it. And DDB, Dell Duncan Busby, their rookie who's had a breakout game a week ago before this and is still looking pretty good, he gets the 2 points. 8-8 tie. There were a couple more 2-and-outs back and forth. Then the Elks marched up again and finished with a jump ball to Mitchell for a touchdown. Riders answered that right back with a drive of their own that they ended up with Patterson sneaking in from the 1-yard line. Looked like that we were going into the half tied 15-15. There were 55 seconds left. Edmonton decided, well, we're going to try and move the ball and get in field goal range. And instead, pass supposed to go to Eugene Lewis, bounced off his knee and ended up in Adam Auclair's hands. Kind of reminded me of the old famous football double play call, Tinker to Evers to Chance, only it was Thompson to Lewis to Auclair. Doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well, but it was nice. Now, I got to say, I was impressed. Auclair made that interception look easy, but it was not. He's charging in full speed, ready to make a tackle on somebody who's literally like 2 feet away from him when the ball bounces. And in that 1/10 of a second, he's got his head wrapped around to, oh, don't tackle, catch the ball, get an interception. And yeah, got tackled right away. Who cares? He got the interception. The Riders marched the ball a little bit and ended up kicking a field goal to go up 18-15 before the half. And they never really looked back from there at all. Roland Milligan started the second half, baiting MBT into a very nice interception. And the Riders marched it a bit and parlayed that into a field goal. To their credit, the Elks didn't give up. They still had fight in them. MBT had one more good drive left in him, and he used it. Went down the field, ended up with a 3-yard pass to not Nick Lewis. Yeah, he's been gone a long time. I think he's coaching for the Stamps now. To Eugene Lewis, to Gino Lewis. And then they missed the convert, which would have put them up by 1 point. It was 21-21 at this point. I feel for Beattie. He may have missed it because they've been, for some reason, they fire off that cannon from their end zone when they get a touchdown, and they've been packing it with a lot of powder because it was There was so much smoke, Beatty probably couldn't even see the uprights he was supposed to be kicking that through. So, we're tied 21-all at this point. Now the Riders came back with an incomplete pass and gave up a sack. But hey, there's offsetting penalties, offside and holding, which apparently are offsetting, even though 5 yards, 10, I don't know. Anyway, Harris made the best of it. Two longer passes, 2 passes over 20 yards and a short run sandwiched in between them. Ended up with a 50-50 ball to Johnson right at the goal line and touchdown. Beautiful catch by him. Now, there was an interesting sequence at the start of the fourth quarter. Not for nothing, but just kind of how weird can football get. So Saskatchewan's starting with the ball in their 27. It's 1st and 10. They throw an incomplete pass, but Oakman goes offside. So, hey, they go up 5 yards, and it's 1st and 5. Brown comes charging through, sacks Trevor Harris, causes a fumble that Noah Zur has to recover. Now it's 2nd and 16. So Trevor tries a pass to Hickson to get them some yards. It's incomplete, but hey, the out couldn't figure out who was supposed to be out there. Too many men on the field. Goes back up 10 yards, 2nd and 6. Trevor completes a 5-yard pass to Emlis. 3rd and 1. You figure the Riders are going to go for it, but no, it's on their 36, and Mace is playing it safe, so they punt. Kind of a much ado about nothing. A lot of things, moving parts in there that didn't really make any difference at all. Could have been a 2-and-out. Now, Edmonton did kick another field goal later on to pull within 2 points, and looked like when we went into past the 3-minute warning going into the half, they looked like they were getting something together. They were moving the ball quite well until Henderson made that aforementioned fumble. Punched it out for him, and the Riders' defense was swarming all night, including on that play. I swear all 12 of them probably touched the ball before they finally got hold of it. C.J. Rivas corralled it. Then they had a few more runs, and they had to challenge one pass, which incomplete, but they were able to challenge on PI and get the challenge for it. That gave them enough time to run out the clock. And that was it. Now, that meant that we have now gone from the start of the weekend where everybody still had a chance to get in the playoffs to Alberta's out of the playoffs. Calgary and Edmonton both, and Hamilton's on life support. They could still get in if Toronto loses all 3 of their last games and Hamilton wins. I think there are 2 that they have left. But it's just become a lot more clear. Now we just got to know who's going to be in first place. That's Montreal in the East. Looks like probably Winnipeg in the West, although if they lose out and Saskatchewan wins out, nobody's holding their breath. Saskatchewan and BC this week. Saskatchewan wins. They've got second place locked up. BC wins. Saskatchewan could still come back and take second next week if BC, or 2 weeks out after their bye, if BC loses to Montreal. Still some stuff to be worked out, but the playoff picture is getting a lot clearer. Now I have to say a couple of other thoughts about this game. If you like receivers, if you like watching receivers do their job, this was the game for you. Wow. There were fantastic catches made by both sides. It was an exciting game that just really, it was a gem. It was a gem. The other thing is, the last time these two teams played, Edmonton gashed the Riders for, I forget what it was well over 200 yards on the ground. This game, well, there was one point in the fourth where I think it was Rankin made a run up the middle for 5 yards, and Dustin Nielsen felt it was appropriate to comment that that's a good gain. And actually it was when you compare to the others. I think overall they ran 15 times for 30 yards, a 2-yard average between Rankin and Leak. I'd say the Riders adjusted their run defense. Now, pressure also had a big impact on this game. Trevor threw the 2 interceptions, and one at least was a direct result of him being pressured out of the pocket, getting a little bit panicky, throwing across his body and letting it be picked. And frankly, there was another time that he did the same thing and it got dropped. So he got lucky there. But likewise with the Elks, when it got into the third and early fourth, they seemed to be getting bothered by the pressure of knowing they had to win to stay in their playoff hunt. And it started showing up in coaching decisions and players' decisions and stuff. I mean, frankly, if you're an interim head coach looking to perform well enough to keep your job next year, not knowing what penalties you can challenge is not a good look at all. Tevon Jones got himself a couple of really nice catches across the middle and got lit up big time both times, so he paid for that. Harris's response, when Edmonton scored their first touchdown and Harris came back with his 88-yarder to Emlis, it was so quick that while Emlis is running down the field towards the end zone, there's still the cloud of smoke from the cannon that the Elks had fired off after their touchdown. Oh, yeah, nothing like answering back that way. I also kind of felt like the score probably should have been higher in this game, or it felt like it should have been higher. I felt like I'd watched 90 points worth of scoring when I saw that it was, under 60, but 28-24, so 53 points. Does that sound right? No. 52 points. Felt like we'd missed something there. Anyway, I guess that about takes us to done with the games. My gambling advice for this week, there's 4 games on. I've seen lines on some of them so far, not all of them. But if you are thinking about wagering on some of the games this weekend, don't. And I think that about covers it for this week. Please remember to subscribe. There's a nice little button right down there. Share it with your friends. Share it with your enemies even. I'm not picky. Just get it out there to people. Leave some comments and mash that like button for me, Come on. Between us, we're going to school the algorithm and get this thing really up and going well. So thank you very much for everything. Thank you for tuning in. Here's hoping for another week of exciting CFL football. Best of luck with your fantasy teams and your pick'em this week. And until next week, get the hell off my lawn.